So we might as well start. And before I begin the meeting formally, can I just say one or two things about housekeeping, really? The dynamics of this room are dreadful, the interpersonal dynamics. So we'll try to make the best we can of them. Everybody is sort of spread out. We can't sort of break up and meet in groups or anything very easily. And we have to use these mics when we're speaking. In order to activate the mic, you press the button at the bottom below the other three. That should then show green or red or something, and you will then be next to speak. And if the other person then puts their mic off, you switch your mic off so that other people can then come in. Sorry, it's going to be a bit cumbersome until you get used to it. May I introduce Simon, who is going to be taking over from Mandy as our clerk and who'll be supporting us. He's going to learn all about sacrays and what they're like and how they work or don't work, as the case may be. And I think before we do anything else further, we ought just to say, for everybody's sake, who we are and who we are representing. And if you're able to say which group you belong to, A, B, C or D, so much the better. I'll kick off and then go around Mary in an anti-clockwise. Okay, Michael Metcalf, I'm a retired Anglican priest. I live in Stafford. I chair the sacre by election each year. And I am in Committee B.
Hello, I'm Mary Gale. I'm not in any committee, but I am the advisor to Sacre. I run my own company called Mary Gale Consultancy, and I've been commissioned by SCC, Stafford County Council, and in trust to support you all here. And I've been on Sacre for 20 odd years, so I know a little bit about Sacre. And I also am a leadership consultant as well.
My name's Vicky Priestley. I'm a teacher about to retire. So I've been appointed via, I think it's Lichfield Diocese. Does that sound right? Not sure what group that is, but I've been teaching for about 34 years, but not teaching RE that long.
Hi, my name's Amy. I represent the Salvation Army. This is my first meeting. I'm taking over from Lydia Bartlett. And I'm a children and families worker for Stafford Salvation Army. So, yeah.
I'm Gabby Oldfield, and I've been on Sacre for a while now, and I represent the Quakers. So I presume I'm in Group B, is that right? A. Okay, sorry.
Hi everyone, my name's Zoe Cahallan. I'm the head teacher at St Michael's First School in Penkridge, and we're an aided school. And this is my first meeting. I was meant to attend the last one, but we got the Ofsted call, so it's lovely to be here today, having had no phone calls. And I don't know which group I'm in.
Who are you representing?
Well, I was asked to represent through sort of being an aided school within the diocese, so Church of England Diocese School, yeah. Group B, lovely, okay.
Hi, my name's Sam Phillips. I work for an organisation called the YouthNet, which is a children and youth charity that works in schools in Stafford. And I think I'm through the Methodist Church for this particular thing. I think that's my hat. So I'm not quite sure what committee that takes me with.
Hi, I'm Linda Goodwin. I represent the National Education Union. Is that C? I can't remember. Or D? I can't remember which group it is, sorry. C, yeah, okay.
Hello, I'm Lauren Nicholson-Ward. I think I'm Group B. I represent Church of England, and I'm an assistant head teacher and head of RE at Christchurch Academy in Stone.
Hi, I'm Philip Atkins. I'm a local authority member.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kath Perry. I represent the authority, Stafford County Council. So I'm in the same group, I take it, as you've just... Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we can talk to each other.
We'll talk to each other. Thank you.
Sorry, I should have welcomed Zoe as well. But you say it's your first meeting as well also. Good, thank you very much. The way we operate is that we try to work by consensus, but if it does come to a vote, each of the 4 groups has a single vote. And the quoracy is that you only need 1 member from each group. So we are here, all 4 groups are represented, so we are fully quorate. But in fact, you'll find that we work very much by consensus and discussion rather than by formal voting, unless it's required that we record a formal vote. So, welcome everyone. Good to see you. And as I say, this is a difficult room to work in, so please be as forthcoming as you can to overcome the dynamics here. We have had some apologies.
Thank you, Chair. We have had apologies from Maddie Bell, Mohammed Parak,
Mohammed, yes.
Julie Thompson, Vicky Longson, Samantha Kerwin, Judy Wyman, Paul Northcott, Paul Snape and Mike Wilcox.
So, as you can gather, we are quite a large group if everybody comes. But we are the number we are here today, so we proceed with the agenda. The second one is the item, the update on membership. We've already said hello to Amy, but we formally welcome her to the Sacre. And we also welcome Zoe on her first meeting, as well as Simon as the clerk in waiting, or clerk designate. Item 3 is just a formality. If you have any other business to declare, please declare it. Okay, so let's move straight on to item 4. Minutes of the meeting held on February the 7th, pages 1 to 6. First of all, I'm going to go through very quickly for accuracy. I do have something on page 1 at the very bottom. There's a redundant sentence in the paragraph, an update on key issues. If people can see that, the whole sentence, further to the Sacre, consider the report, that whole sentence needs to be taken out. It's repeated, but not to worry. Any other comments about the accuracy on page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5? Okay. So, may I have your consent that these be accepted as a true record with that one minor correction? Okay, thank you. Any matters arising that aren't actually on the agenda? I've just got one, and I don't want to delay on this one, but on page 4, it's the question of the nil return from Catholic schools, Mary. It says you were going to follow that up. I don't know whether you have done.
Yeah, what I've done is I've been on their website. I've been on the websites for the Catholic schools, and on the website it indicates very clearly that they are actually teaching religious education, as you would expect, even though there was a 0 return on the workforce development census for teaching of RE. So I think it might have been a clerical error, because definitely it's happening. And I have been supporting a couple of Roman Catholic schools in the area and just checking, and it definitely RE is being taught, as you would expect. Yes.
Thank you, Mary. It does raise a question as to how accurate these statistics are, doesn't it, these returns? People perhaps fill them in very quickly or casually. One more chore to be done.
These returns as well are filled in by office staff and business staff, and sometimes they confuse religious education with religious studies, and because the word isn't exactly as it is written in the census, they then say 0. And in actual fact, it is happening, but sometimes they call it religion and ethics, or philosophy and ethics, when in actual fact, it is religious education.
Thank you, Mary. We move on to item... Oh, sorry, are there any other matters that people wish to raise from the minutes? Yes, Amy.
Can I just add on to that? Would it be worth rewording the title on the statistics end to include all those?
The statistics are sent by the DFE to every school in the whole country. It's not a Staffordshire aspect, it's a whole nationwide aspect. So we could write to the DFE, but I'm not quite sure if they will change the whole of the SIM system.
Is it 100% or is it a sort of selection of schools?
All schools have to return a census for workforce census in the autumn term. Nobody can opt out. If they opt out, then they're severely reprimanded.
But think of the business of collating it all afterwards. Item 5, the update on key issues. There are several pages here, so we'll try to work through these as quickly as possible. This is simply Mary reporting on what's going on in our schools and with RE, and what's going on in the wider world about RE and SACRAs.
Hopefully you've had time to look at all the papers that I've presented to you. The first one on page 8 is about the media release with regard to religious education being taught in schools. And in some areas there's a falling record of people taking part in religious education with regard to GCSEs and A-levels. But in other areas there is a significant rise, so it's a little bit of a variation of practice there. But as you can see here from the however, that is the part where people are worried about that religious education is not being taught in schools because it's not being reported. So a media report or a media release is taken, as we did. They've looked at that and thought 0 hours for RE means it's not being taught, but in actual fact, it's a little anomaly with the labelling in some cases. Yeah. So I think they are going to try and, like Amy has suggested, I think they are going to try and sort it out, but we'll have to see how that develops. And hopefully this time next year, we'll have a clearer picture. And on page 9, it's sad to report that there is no central government funding for religious education projects, but we are pleased that there are charity project funds available, aren't there, through Culham, St Gabriel and so on.
Well, I was going to make the same comment that the government is actually failing to do anything because other bodies are actually funding RE themselves from historic resources.
And that is a sad picture from the government itself. But we do know that RE is flourishing and there are grants available for those people who wish to apply for them. Then I've also on page 9, I've given you some indicator of where it is we actually receive our support, help and guidance. And that's showing you there that we receive guidance from NASACA, which is the National Association of SACRAs, and ARIAC, which is the Association for Religious Education Inspectors and Consultants. So we receive advice from them. We receive advice from the REC. We receive advice from NATRE. And you can see all of those are written down there on page 9. So anything that Michael and I might report on, yes, we have our own opinions on these aspects, and we support you in SACRE in understanding those aspects. But in actual fact, we do quite a bit of research on our own bat from these other associations. And I actually attend meetings to do with NATRE, National Association for Teachers Religious Education. I attend the termly meetings for those, but anybody who is an RE teacher can attend those. So if anybody does want to know how to network in that respect, just contact me through Mandy or Simon and I will give you all the links for that. The next section on page 10 is about Ofsted reports on the school curriculum.
Before you move on to that, there's also NATRE, which Mary has put there at the top of page 10. In case people do want to look this up online, could I just make the point that actually it runs the RE and the Today together. There is no gap between them in its kind of trail. If you're trying to track it down online, you have to put RE Today as a single word.
Thank you, Michael. And then the next aspect is to do with Ofsted reports and the curriculum. And Ofsted, they have been, they've done some research into what good practice in RE should look like within schools. And we do know that within the schools, Staffordshire included, and nationwide, that there is some concern over religious education, particularly in high schools and secondary schools. Basically, they're saying that RE in primary schools, first schools, and in middle schools, people are doing a great job. But it's that the older the pupil, the less RE seems to have an impact if they're not taking the RE as a course like GCSE or A-level. And so they are actually looking at that quite carefully when going in and inspecting schools. And they intend to release another report in the new year. So that would be good. On page 10 as well, we have more information about a project that we received funding for here in Staffordshire, some charity funding from the West Hill Legacy. And through that, we have been able, in conjunction with YouthNet, to run projects called Explore, Engage, Reflect, which are part of our agreed syllabus.
And also with support from the minority...
Yeah. And this is supported by the MIAS team, the Minority Ethnic Achievement Service, and they have been able to deliver workshops in conjunction with YouthNet. And the MIAS team, they deliver workshops on the Islamic aspects of faith, and the YouthNet, they then compare and contrast with the Christianity, and those have been well received. We have not run any of those in the previous term because there were still quite a few instances of COVID, especially in primary schools. So what happened there was that we had a YouthNet project, and that was Christianity, the big project, the big picture. And Sam, you were instrumental in supporting that.
Yeah, it was great, and it was good to be able to get back into schools. I think they were... it feels like this term, we went in last term, and it feels like this term there is life breathing back in, and they've managed to get everything back sort of corralled into order, and that they're starting to look to more sort of wider sort of content. So I'm more hopeful that next year will feel like a more normal year.
And when we come to the budget, I would say at that point we would need to consider if we could put funds in so that YouthNet could carry on with that project and MIAS, because they're waiting for this meeting to actually start booking in any autumn term workshops. But I said I'm not able to give that okay until this meeting.
Till we say you can spend the money.
That's correct, yeah. So there we've got some reflections from YouthNet concerning that conference and feedback. And we do know that in high schools, secondary schools, it is hard when the children haven't been in this kind of environment for a while. Behaviour can be an issue. And lots of high schools that I'm working with, one of the main things they're saying is there has been...
deterioration.
Yeah, deterioration in behaviour.
Yeah, I was just going to say that when we went in, that was the first time they had those young people in that year, in the year that we did, thinking about when they'd had a previous complete year of schooling. It was a good couple of years before they'd had a complete year of schooling, and they're just not used to. They weren't used to the interaction stuff, and actually we found the interaction stuff quite a challenge because you've spent the last couple of years being at a distance from people and not having things where people can touch and all that sort of stuff. So it was quite an interesting, quite an interesting experience to do it. It was very, very positive, and some of the young people really, really loved it. Some of the young people really, really struggled with it. But I think we were at that sort of crossover of some people still quite anxious about the COVID in terms of touching stuff, and other people really wanted to get back to normality. So I think it was a bit of a unique period in order which to be trying to deliver it. Hopefully next sort of term it will look a little bit different.
But we do thank you for persevering, because if we don't try things out, even in a context that can be a little difficult, then we'll never move forward. So well done for YouthNet there. Over on page 12, at the top of the page, I'm talking about continuous professional development. And just as we know within schools, these types of activities have halted slightly. Central courses at the main interest office have not been available, although I have been emailing and encouraging them to open the rooms up. I have had an email from Graham Tague, who is one of the main gentlemen, if you like, at interest, and he's assured me that in the autumn term there will be opportunities to provide continuous professional development for teachers. And this morning we had an email from a couple of high schools.
Really?
Who say they are missing out on continuous professional development and religious education. Now, all the years I've been here, I've never had an email from a high school until this last term to say they feel like they're missing out. So that's positive.
As a matter of interest, are they these academies yet or not?
We've got one academy and one maintained school. Yeah. So,
I had an email this morning from a group of RE teachers asking about support for the new. So they wanted to know when they could have that support. So that's quite a lot of schools. Okay.
I have sent an email this morning to Graham to say I'm more than happy to facilitate support in the autumn term. Everybody keeps saying, will you send us the agreed syllabus today? And I've had to explain that it has to go through certain steps before that will happen. But I sent a reassuring email to say, keep what you're doing and we'll help you support.
Well, I mean, the current agreed syllabus is still in force.
And this is what I've told them.
Yeah.
The other one has not changed. The other one is there. But they all want to be ahead of the game. I think, actually, it's piqued a bit of interest in religious education. Yeah. I'm very pleased. Yeah. I like that word, Kath, promising. Also, as you know, through the governor information packs that I provide for schools, I've been encouraging governors to go into school and ask the questions about religious education. And it could be, I've given them a list of questions, they've gone into schools, and some of the governors have reported back to me that teachers could not answer the questions. So I think that's actually, it's just highlighted the fact we all need a little bit more training. So that's going to happen in the autumn term, and I'm looking forward to delivering that. And then on page 12, just a little synopsis of a meeting I went to with regard to the Association of Religious Education Inspectors and Advisors. And we explored the story of Harry Potter. And does it have a religious message? So that was an intriguing conversation. So I have put a few of those aspects in, especially if you're teaching, that might help and support you.
It's suggestive in its way, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Then I have indicated on page 13 some articles to do with religion and worldview, so I've referenced those, and one of those we will look at in a little bit more detail as the meeting goes on. Yeah. And then on the final page, on page 14, there's an update on the school that is applying for the RE Quality Mark, St Chad's at Pattingham. And as you know, Sacre have agreed to fund this for them because they're quite a small school. And I had an email 3 days ago, so it's not in this information, to say that they have put together all their information and will be submitting it in the autumn term, ready to be assessed. So they're very excited, and they've asked if I could just pop in to St Chad's at Pattingham to help just look through the paperwork, having been in a school that achieved the REQM Silver Mark, the first one in the West Midlands, a few years ago.
Yeah, just to add to what Mary's just said, the RE Quality Mark is a national standard now, and it's a scheme which any school can enter into to apply for the quality mark, which can be at gold, silver or bronze level, a bit like the Olympics, isn't it? It costs money for a school to apply. So it's not something that you can just sort of add on just for the for the fun of it, so to speak. You have to be quite serious about it. And small schools do have difficulty finding a bit of extra cash.
And they had an Ofsted recently, and they explained to the Ofsted inspector that they were carrying out the REQM, so that was to do with spiritual, moral, social, cultural, as well as religious education, and they feel that that might have contributed towards their good outcome, because within that they had explored Black History Month, etc. So it has had an impact already on that school, and it has had an impact on their inspection outcome from Ofsted.
Thank you very much, Mary. So there's quite a lot that's been going on that Mary has been keeping on top of and involved in, and quite a lot nationally as well as within Staffordshire itself. Before we move on, does anybody want to ask any questions? Lauren?
I was just going to say that we did the REQM, I want to say 3 years ago at Gold, and it was a really, really valuable experience. So if they want anyone to just chat to dead informally to sort of say what the process was like and to talk it through, I'd be more than happy to offer that.
Sorry, yeah, same here. We've been through it about 2 years ago and had the Gold Award, so similar, if anybody wants to.
Brilliant.
We did put it out there at the time, I think, but everyone's busy, so.
Super. Anything else on this quite substantial item? So we move on to item 6, update on NASACA, and Mary has provided quite a full account here. Can I just say that my own position within NASACA is that I've now retired as its treasurer, although I still have the power to pay money out because they haven't managed to transfer the bank details yet. But my own link with NASACA is likely to decrease over the next year. So we're dependent much more on what they send out, or we're going to be, and on the contacts that we have through their particular events like the annual meeting. And Mary and I were both at the annual meeting online. And I have to say, as treasurer, we had to pay a £4,000 penalty because we had to cancel the booking. And the hotel in Birmingham was quite hard-nosed about it. So they weren't, I mean, I can see their point. They're suffering the same sort of thing. But we did cancel, and we had signed the contract, and that was the contract. Unfortunately, the funds aren't reduced to zero by that. In some ways, it helps to reduce a rather suspiciously large surplus that there is at the moment.
The interesting thing about the conference that we attended was that we went into breakout rooms, and I was in a breakout room without Michael, and we just had to give a summary of the things that we do within our SACRAs. So I just reeled off some of the things we do as normal, and the rest of the group went, oh. And hardly anybody in the group did as much as we did, and I sometimes think we don't do as much as we could. But actually they loved the way that we engaged with governors. We loved the way that we had an agreed project which was connected directly to our agreed syllabus, and those kind of things. People were scribbling away, and they asked if I could join a webinar later in the autumn term to say how Staffordshire SACRA actually rolls out what it can do with limited funds. So I just thought, on behalf of us all, well done, because it's without your help we're not endorsed to do anything.
The solution is to clone Mary. Well, no, not at all. Well, thank you. Any questions about NASACA? It is the organisation that seeks to support and to be an advocate for local SACRAs. And I have to say that with the pressure towards academisation and the reduced role of local authorities, there is a question mark in the medium and long term about the future of SACRAs. They are still statutory, and the government still requires local authorities to have them, but we're not quite sure what their future role is going to become, so watch this space. And another development that I can mention is that one of the key people within the NASACA executive, Claire Clinton, who's an advisor for several London boroughs, has become the national RE hub promoter. And this is a kind of development which is in parallel to local authorities and the SACRAs. It's the drawing together of groups of people regionally in RE hubs for support and sharing and development. And Claire on the NASICA executive has been appointed as the national promoter for these, and there will be a regional person leading this locally as well. So that's something that we're, I suppose, involved in NASICA-wise at a slight arm's length. So things are happening within the RE world, within the world of SACRAs. Okay, no more questions, comments on that. Oh yes, go on, Gabby.
If they abolish SACRAs, does that mean that the role of RE is going to be diminished?
Not at all. It just means that it will be managed in a different way. Already, academies are free to choose what agreed syllabus they want to, but it must be an agreed syllabus of some sort, but it doesn't need to be the one that's been developed locally. But it still requires, I mean, I think it's in one of the items that Mary has written up, it is still the case that all schools have to deliver a basic curriculum which contains the national curriculum and RE. And that is the standpoint that the government is stressing, so that every school is bound by that requirement to deliver the basic curriculum, which is the national curriculum and RE.
Is it more top-down then and less control from the bottom?
No, I don't think so. No, they aren't saying what should be taught. They're just saying that it must be taught, and at the moment it's local arrangements which divides the syllabuses that are available. You'll know perhaps that there has been a big project being developed by the Religious Education Council on religion and worldviews, which we'll be coming to later, and that project has developed an outline of what a national entitlement in RE might look like, and some guidelines, a draft outline of what a syllabus based on a worldviews and religions approach might look like. But that is not a national syllabus for RE. It is still the case that all syllabuses for RE are being devised locally at the moment. Okay? Simon, we do a funny thing here. We go through the cupboard and we transform ourselves into a completely different body, which looks exactly the same as this one. We suspend the meeting of the SACRA and we turn ourselves into the Agreed Syllabus Conference, the ASC. And we have a separate agenda to deal with, which is on page 19, which we now move on to. The people present and the apologies stand as for the meeting of the SACRA. And the minutes of the meeting on the February the 2nd were included in the SACRA main minutes, but if people wish to raise a point relating to them at this moment, they could do so. I don't know that there are any matters arising from those minutes, but if you want a second or two to look back, by all means, please do. It won't hurt to just have a pause for a moment. I think one of the main things to come out of that meeting, which we're continuing to deal with today, is that there's been a bit of slippage in the timescale that we're working to, which doesn't matter desperately. But we're now looking to implement the syllabus from January next year rather than from September this year. So if there are no matters arising, we have now item 5, update on milestones. This is how the process of revising and drawing up this agreed syllabus in a revised form, how that's progressing. And Mary can take us through this, but we don't need to go in detail.
So you can see the update on milestones. You can see where we are. Today is an important meeting because today is almost the first presentation of the revised syllabus. There are still typos and there are still areas to do with icons and formatting because it's in the business unit here in Stafford, and when it transfers to my computer, and Michael has found this, that when you type something in, 65 other things disappear. So it has been quite a project to work out what is where. I think you sound familiar about that. You look like you know what's going on. So today is the presentation of the first draft.
Revised here.
I think
the revised.
yes, of the revised. Yeah, it's the revised agreed syllabus. We've had some engagement with stakeholders. In fact, for this revised syllabus and reviewed syllabus, we've engaged more with stakeholders than we did the last time for 2016 because I was part of that review and revising at that point. And we've come across areas where people are saying they want more to do with assessment, more to do with special schools, more to do with early years within the syllabus to make it clearer. And so we've tried to address those stakeholder worries and concerns. People are anxious that we are going to say throughout all your planning, throughout everything you've ever done with RE and start again. But I think you will see if you've been through part of this agreed syllabus that we have revised here. It's quite similar to the previous one, but there is a greater emphasis now on looking at aspects such as religious education in conjunction with worldviews, which are non-religious views as well. So those things have been added. We've promoted for them on page 20. We've asked them to take part in a survey, which schools have done, and to give their thoughts and comments. I've spoken to about 200 governors about the religious education syllabus, and people, I think, are ready and willing to engage with the changes. So today we do have for you on page...
Yeah, can I just, before we move on pages 20 and 21, Mary lists some of the things that we've tried to respond to, and we'll look at in detail at the draft syllabus in a moment.
Okay,
But this is just to record that actually things have been happening and that we've been attempting to listen to and take soundings about where we should be going. And we're very grateful to all this work that Mary has been doing to carry forward the revision. But it's a very impressive, I think, account of how we've tried to be aware of how people are responding to the syllabus in the schools, what's going on in the wider world, and what we need to take note of from a statutory point of view as well.
And for instance, the special education needs and disability section, I've sent that off to a special school to say, look at this, does it make sense? Can you work on this? The early years section, I've done similar with schools because it's not for us to deliver, is it? So it's got to make sense. And they've made some tweaks and amendments, which I now will put in. They're not included in today's, but they're mostly to do with, oh, could you add this word or that word? We're not talking wholesale rewriting of paragraphs or anything like that. So the next step will be to look at it in a little bit more detail, but we do know there are missing items because Michael's has to write his special introduction, and then we've got the foreword to be written as well. And what we need from this meeting is an agreement almost in principle that you are very happy with what is written here, forgetting typos, that type of thing, but the content in general is something that you would endorse.
And I think I would add to that the way we organise the material might be tweaked as well, because we want this to be a syllabus that feels accessible and friendly to teachers rather than presents them with a whole sheaf of words and legal stuff and ifs and buts and all sorts of things. So we will be looking at how the material is presented in a very thorough way before we come to the final text. But as Mary says, what we do look for today is broad agreement that the text we have is a text that you're happy with in general, and This is the opportunity now for people to say they don't like it very much. In this or that sense. So this is really important business now. What we're doing will affect what happens in Staffordshire schools for the next 5 years. This is our main business this afternoon, really. So if I can move to page 27 in the big numbers, I'm feeling that this background information is not the best way to start the syllabus. You don't want to open the page and have this. On the other hand, we do have to spell it out. So we're going to look at, I think, how that should be organised. And my own wish would be that on page 29, that this is what teachers meet as soon as they get into the syllabus. This is what people have been asking for, a statement of the vision behind the syllabus and what the ultimate, the sort of fundamental aims of it are. What are we hoping to achieve through RE in our schools and with the pupils? Now, you'll see that the first paragraph is very much what was there in the previous syllabus, but has been given more emphasis. We've added a rationale, and that's one of the issues where we couldn't do the formatting properly. It should run on as a single paragraph, but we couldn't get the sentences to join up. So try to read that just as a single paragraph. And then we've added this note on world views, which I've devised myself. So I'm quite happy for people to say that it doesn't suit or it's not effective in certain ways. But that is what we would wish teachers, RE leaders and so on to see first of all. And the three, if you like, dynamics of the syllabus, explore, engage, reflect, given that emphasis there.
And we've actually changed the icons round because when we looked at it carefully, we felt that the icons were in the wrong order in the previous syllabus, and these icons actually are better. It might be a simple tweak, but now to us it makes much more sense.
I think as we go through the syllabus, we're not going to go through every page in detail, but this is the opportunity for people to raise questions and make comments. There will be one further meeting of the working party, I think, or at least of an editorial group between Mary and myself and perhaps others, and we will produce a final revised version to the next meeting of the SACRE for it to, for the agreed syllabus conference, for it to adopt in a formal way, and we will then require a vote. But I don't think we need to take a formal vote today. General consensus, I think, is certainly adequate. So that's page 29. Page 30, again, is what we have already in the present syllabus. And page 31 has got this new section on early years foundation, which Mary has added in. And have we enhanced anything else there? I don't think we have, Mary, have we?
No.
Okay. And then I think the next few pages repeat what is already in the syllabus. I don't know, I think planning your religious education is a new section that Mary has added. So do you want to say anything about that, Mary?
One of the main aspects that people wanted more information on when we engaged with stakeholders was they wanted more information on how to plan their religious education, because we can't plan it for every year group in every school. It's the same with the national curriculum. They tell you what you need to cover, but each school looks at that and puts together a curriculum that suits their own locality wherever they live in Staffordshire. So the planning aspects there, we've tried to make that a little bit clearer for everybody of what it is they should be doing in order to go with the three themes of explore, engage, reflect, and the units of work that would help and support that. Then we've also added the special education needs aspects on page big page 35, and it goes over the page as well. Because people said it's usually put in an appendix, and they always feel like special education needs is an afterthought. So we've tried to include it in the main aspect this time. And any school that has special education needs and is children, as it is an inclusive school, can see that, and they can adapt that as well for the needs of their current pupils.
One of the things that Ofsted seem to be picking up on is RE syllabuses which do not build accumulative kinds of knowledge. That is to say, they flit around from one thing to another, and they don't revisit and build on what has already been learnt, so that what has already been learnt just sort of languishes and eventually sort of dies off. So there is a concern to see that the RE curriculum builds on what has already been covered.
So Ofsted are looking for connectivity within the curriculum, and that children can remember more, explain more, instead of just having a little bit of knowledge about a few things. They understand more things in greater depth, but not too many things. And they make connections between different religions of how people might pray. So instead of just learning how Christians pray, they would learn how other religious groups would pray, and they would make some comparisons. And I've had some meetings with the Ofsted inspector to look at that in conferences, and that has come over exactly as Michael has said. It's come over loud and clear of what it is that's expected. I don't know if Zoe wants to add anything there, thinking about your school.
I think for us as a church school, it's much easier to do just that, to make those connections, because obviously we are a church school and therefore Christianity is part of our daily breath, if you like. So it is easier, and creating connections between different religions is built into the curriculum. But depending on your level of confidence to teach, and this comes back to what you said about CPD, your level of confidence about other world religions really has an impact on how well you do that as a teacher and how well how good the outcomes there are. So I think CPD has a lot to play for confidence of staff to really feel comfortable in making those connections and you know, opening children's eyes to those.
And when we present the CPD, we will be looking at some of the language that teachers use. So it won't be all Christians do this, all Muslims do this. It will be some Christians do this, some others do this, and some do not do any of it. It depends on their life stance, on their worldview. And we will encourage teachers that even if they may not know anything about Sikhism, about Sikhi, that they actually explore it together with the children and admit that they are learning alongside the child. And so it becomes more of an exploration together instead of an expert telling somebody else what it is that needs to be learned. So it's the exploration aspects as well, hence the word explore. And the good thing is our explore, engage, reflect. When we started that 6 years ago, this was very different from the way anybody else was actually expecting that RE would be taught throughout the whole country, because at that point everybody was learning about religion and learning from religion, and we have been instrumental in ensuring that it is an exploration. It's not about, I am the knowledge giver as the teacher and you will receive it and learn it. It's about, let's explore together what this actually means. A little bit, if you like, if you're in an early years setting, how the early years children learn. So we've taken a lot of thought and deliberation about how early years children learn things. We've tried to imprint that, if you like, on the other year groups.
Yeah, I'd just like to reinforce what Mary has said. We're all learners. We're all exploring together. And I suppose a mark of somebody who has become religiously more educated, better educated, is that they are aware of the diversity, increasingly aware of the diversity within each religious tradition, and are able to evaluate that kind of situation. And it's not easy, because teachers like to be able to deal with something that's relatively simple. and that they know that they've been able to share with their pupils and that they can tick the box off, if you like. But it doesn't necessarily work like that in religious education. We're learning that we've got to be able to avoid suggesting that each religious tradition is monolithic, that it is just one kind of pattern and that everybody fits into that. I think a moment's reflection to any group of religious people meeting together, like a church or anything, they wouldn't all be a sort of monolithic group of people, even there at that level. So, yes. But it's a question of becoming more and more sophisticated, isn't it? It's a learning process. Okay, thank you. And then on page, big pages 39 and 40, this is another addition that Mary has offered for the syllabus on constructing the curriculum in the early years foundation stage.
And I have obviously used the legislation regarding the early years foundation stage and the learning intentions that are provided for schools. We don't make it up. The early learning goals are there for everybody to follow. And so I have just tried to take each of those areas and say where RE could be relevant. And I don't know if you find that useful as a teacher, whether it makes sense. It makes sense to me, having come from an early years environment. And over the page, onto page 40, there are lots of things there about expressive arts and design and how RE enables pupils to be creative in their work. And I'm sure the special schools are also looking at some of that early years work as well. And then over the page, on page 41, sorry, yes, of course.
Any comments on that? Because we now move on to material, we now move on to material that is reflective, it's copied from the previous syllabus. The material on early years foundation is new, but Key Stage 1, page 41 and onwards for the next few pages, is more or less a repeat, except that we have enhanced the references to non-religious worldviews. Lauren.
My only thought was, and this might be a little too prescriptive, a lot of schools now, obviously it's slightly old hat, but we use, I don't know how visible this is, but for my curriculum planning for RE, we sort of have this, it's not really a spiral, but it's sort of a journey map, and then you can kind of see where topics are revisited, but kind of scaled up and differentiated for pupils as they move through the year groups. Is it worth having some kind of suggestion or recommendation within that planning your RE section about the benefits of curriculum mapping, and this is an example of how it may look for you? I don't know, just to give people a sort of exemplar that's kind of easy to work from.
Because these things change within 2 or 3 years, we didn't think it was a good idea to actually put it in the agreed syllabus itself, but to add those types of things within an appendix. So the agreed syllabus would say planning is what you need to include, but then the appendix would have examples of vocabulary to be used, a type of planning schedule that could be used, and then the appendix would easily be adjusted without the whole syllabus having to be rewritten. So that would come in appendices. But I agree with you, Lauren.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout, just because, as I say, if I put myself in the position of being completely new to teaching it in a school and being given the sort of subject leader responsibility, having that kind of thing I think would really help me out. So yeah, I think that's a good plan.
Thanks very much, Lauren. Can we take it that the Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4 and 5 pages are okay? And as I say, we've just touched up the references to other worldviews.
And we've also emphasised RE must be taught. Now, wherever teachers see the word must, they know it's the law. And we felt that perhaps this time we really needed to emphasise the word must, not could be, or should be, or if you have a moment.
Or might be.
Might be. So we have actually emphasised the word must in quite a few areas within this agreed syllabus.
Moving on to pages 46 and onwards, the framework for assessment is the same, and the age-related expectations for RE are largely the same, except that Mary has added an initial one for the end of reception, early years foundation stage, and we've also tweaked a little bit some of the wording in this, but only in minor ways. So that takes us through to page 51 so far. Are we all right so far? We're going through at a bit of a gallop, but there's a lot to get through. Now, on page 52, we come to the section that Mary has written on RE and British values. I think that's an extended section, isn't it? That's new material there, some of that. And so is the inspection of RE, which picks up how Ofsted is operating at the moment in general. And how this applies to RE. I'm thinking that much of this will be in appendices, which people can look at rather than part of the actual heart of the syllabus, but I don't know, we can look at that again, can't we, Mary? Any comments on this material? Okay, so if we can move on to legal framework requirements. This is largely a repeat also, I think, of material that's in our own current syllabus, and similarly page 59 and 60 and 61. Okay, so that's the material that we're looking at to be the kind of heart of the revised agreed syllabus. And I trust that it meets with people's broad consent and agreement. As you can see, Appendix 1, planning examples, assessment examples, resources to support, useful websites. I think we'll find that there's more putting in the appendix than is listed there from the bulk of the material we've been looking at. But the presentation, if people are happy to leave that to Mary and me, it won't tinker with the text at all. It will move it forward and just present it in the right kind of way. I think we have done to a large extent what teachers have said. Please don't change the syllabus too much. We've beefed it up in a number of areas. We've tweaked it in a number of ways, but hopefully teachers will find that what they have been doing so far will lead in quite naturally into what is going to be presented in the revised syllabus. And in that kind of spirit, the Working Party does commend it to the Agreed Syllabus Conference. Say anything further? In that case, go on, sorry.
I'd just like to thank Mary for all the work you've done on it. Congratulations, yeah.
No, that's very true. We will record that in the minutes. Thank you very much. So, with the feeling that we have a consensus of support for what we've been doing, I will close the meeting of the Agreed Syllabus Conference and go through the cupboard. And lo and behold, we come out the other side and we've become the Sacre again. So agenda item 8. Reports of the Director, Deputy Chief, reports on RE reports and so on, religion worldviews. Now this is for Mary to present, I think. We've got, hooray, some pictures to look at. So they're quite stimulating and quite interesting. So I think they're not up on the screen, but they are in front of us here.
So this was a media report that was released. I have referred a little bit to it in my spiel right at the beginning. But this is about RE over the last decade, not just last year. And this gives you an indicator of how RE is valued, if you like, within our country, or not, as the case may be. But looking at basically A-level results, GCSE, and how people know and feel that RE needs to be academically rigorous and challenging. It's not an easy subject. It's not something that you just walk into a classroom and think, oh, I'll teach the RE today. You need as much preparation for RE as you would for other subjects. And so the pictures do help, don't they? They help you, they grab your headlines. This is called the report card on religious education. It's a little bit different from the report cards I used to have at school. But, and then over the page, it says 64% of the UK population think in education in religious and worldviews is important. So that's good that it's over 50%, it's 64%. But then a lot of people feel that they're not religious, but they do want people to learn about religious education because that gives you a rounded education as well. And then some phrases about what good religious education creates. And we all want our pupils to be independent, critical thinkers. And some of those aspects will mirror the school vision, I would hope. And some of the words here could be used to create an excellent school vision, I feel. And then over the page, it talks about school performance on page 69, little 69. And time spent on the subject is improving in some areas, particularly at primary, but few worries about academies. I have been speaking to some academies and they are saying, well, we didn't know we had to teach RE. We didn't realise we had to teach RE. Now, that's not church academies. They know what they're doing. But other academies. Now, this isn't just in Staffordshire. This is nationwide because I work with a number of academies London way, and they do not give much credence to the teaching of religious education. Then they worry that Ofsted are coming in and they realise this is one area that they need support with. So you've got to provide the right amount of high quality RE provisions. So within our agreed syllabus, we've actually said how many hours we feel as a SACRE would provide that high provision. So if people say, I don't know what to do, don't know how long to teach it, we just say it's all in the agreed syllabus. But just as like you would teach mathematics and you know you have to teach multiplication, we're not going to sit down with people and say you have to teach it this way. That's for the school to decide. And we all know if it was mathematics, you would have a calculation policy. You would explore that yourselves. So I don't think we need to spoon feed too much because people do need to use their acumen and their teacher knowledge, which I know they're quite willing to do with a bit of guidance. And then we have over the page about government performance. And the government firmly believes that RE is important, which is great to hear. Shame they don't put the money where their mouth is, but that's another story on another day. And it says, despite this, 0 is spent on RE projects from the government, and yet you can see how much is spent on other subjects. And of course, we worry about the lack of RE specialism within school. And I'm on a special website that looks at jobs and how many jobs there are available for RE specialists. And there are a number of jobs that cannot be filled. There are a number of posts where they cannot fill.
Just as a kind of diversion. Just as a kind of diversion, on the page where it says government performance, you'll notice that there are 10 symbols. Could you identify the 10 symbols on which traditions these symbols relate to? I'm sorry, Gabby, have you not got it in front of you? There we are.
Thank you, Zoe.
Some of them don't appear in exactly the form in which you might recognise them. I had to think, but I think I know what they all are.
Oh, we're going to test you, Michael?
Yes, you are. Okay.
Are you going to share that mic.
Well, let's do it as a group thing. The first one is fairly obvious. It's Judaism. Yeah. Okay. The second one. Sikhism, did you say? Sikhism.
Which is sometimes now called Sikhi.
Sikhi. And that, the Sikh symbol is made out of some of the Ks that Sikhs wear. The next one to it is the 8-spoked wheel of Buddhism. Okay. The next one is Christianity. The next one after that is the Sanskrit symbol for Om, which suggests Hindi, which should not be called Hinduism. We learn.
Is that
Now I'd say that was Buddhism as well, actually. Oh, I think it might be Jainism. Jainism. Yeah, Jainism. Then we've got the star and the crescent, which is, of course, Islam. Now the next one, the wings, is Zoroastrianism. Yes, the Parsi faith. Now, if you haven't come across the next one, it might fox you a little bit. Humanists UK, as they now call themselves. Humanists UK, yes, right, well done. And finally, that's Baha'i. That's Baha'i. Is it a 9-point circle? I think it is. Yeah. There you are, a little bit of diversion. Very good.
I like the quote at the bottom that says, words need to be backed up with action, which is,
And the government performance is given an E.
Then over on page 71, it reiterates the fact that high-quality education is about religion and worldviews. I think that's important, and it's for all pupils in all schools, so it's not just a selection, unless, of course, their parents have withdrawn them, or that they're over the age of 18 and they can withdraw themselves. So it says how we can achieve this, and there's a lot there about teacher training, bursaries, because that has been actually removed currently to save money. I have actually approached the training schools for teaching about whether they need any support to deliver high-quality RE in Staffordshire, but unfortunately I've not had any replies. But we can just try.
Okay. That was a lively trot through this media report, which is independent of the government, I think. Who drew it up? Was it RE Today?
Yes.
It's quite a useful sort of headliner thing, and with some very, I think, telling quotations from practitioners and from pupils. That's just to, I think, give us a bit of a stimulus, really. Say the subject is worthwhile. It's valued by most people. The government's performance isn't quite so good. But there we are. And it's all material, it's all ammunition, really, in promoting the cause of RE. So now we come on to the draft handbook that has been produced by the RE Council of England and Wales. The RE Council, by the way, bye-bye, Gabby. Oh, right, okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks. And there's no doubt that within the RE world at the moment, there is a momentum towards promoting this kind of approach within RE. It's possible that over the next few years, this might get built into RE in a more statutory or more directive way, but at the moment, this is only consultative and optional, if I can put it like that. We do not have to take note of it, but on the other hand, we will be expected to have taken note of it, I think. This is the direction things are going in. That's where the sort of current is flowing at the moment. Mary has, at least the formatting is rather tight, because it's been 2 pages on a single sheet here. Do you want to take us through this, Mary? The headlines, really.
Well, the headlines are, whereas before it was all about religious literacy, remember those were the buzzwords we were using, now the buzzwords of religion and worldviews in the classroom. And this draft handbook, as Michael has said, emphasises the fact that worldviews has to be taken into account when teaching religious education. It's no longer it's about the main religions and that's it. You have to take into account of those people who have or, have never encountered religious education. It's not about expecting people to become religious because you are teaching RE. It's just about exploring the fact that some people may have religions, some people may not, and some people may not even be aware that there are religions in the world.
And if I might, Mary, people's views are not static and frozen. They are evolving, and we work with that.
And just as your knowledge increases day by day because of your daily experiences, we call that cultural capital, it's the same with teachers and it's the same with the children, that they will develop their knowledge of religious education and worldviews just by living in the world. Some families' views about worldviews may be contrary to other people's, and children and pupils will encounter actions from other people which will cause them distress. And they have to explore their feelings towards those actions and learn how to agree disagreeably or disagree agreeably. That's what I mean, the other way around. So within this, there's an outline and a rationale for the handbook, which you would expect. It's a little bit like a agreed syllabus in one sense. It gives you explanations about what do people mean by worldviews, what's the value of worldviews, and what a worldview approach is not doing, which is in section 5. And that's a really interesting one if you get a chance to look at that in another on another day, at another time. And the approach is not arguing that since everyone has a worldview, this leads to relativism with all worldviews having equal values. And it's not about saying everybody is the same if they've got a religion. There are differences and variances and diversions within all religions and within those who do not say they are religious. So this moves, if you like, the thought process on with regard to just living in the world and what it means, and how you might select the content in which you want to teach worldviews and religious education. We've been very good on working out what we need to select content for when teaching RE. That's the easy bit, but selecting content for teaching of worldviews will require some thought process behind it.
I'm struck by this sentence at the bottom of page
Section 4.
8, section 4, yes, page 8. It might be better to say that a person inhabits a worldview rather than that they have a worldview. That they inhabit a worldview. That's an interesting one, isn't it? But I think there's a lot in this particular paper which we will need to reflect on and think about, and it's going to be part of an ongoing process, I think, over the next few years.
Then in section 9, it talks about the National Statement of Entitlement for Religious Education, because there is an entitlement that all children will receive religious education. So this explores it a little bit more and has added the worldviews into it and how that will be interpreted within schools. And they talk about ways of knowing and lived experiences, personal worldviews, and so on. And Ofsted are quite keen on knowing that schools understand about ways of knowing, about looking at religion and worldviews through different lenses, they call it. And over on the opposite page, page 19, they're talking about the entitlement, and they use the word pupils must be taught to understand the nature of worldviews in relation to religion and belief. And they give you a table about that.
Yeah, Mary has used the word must, but this document is still merely advisory and optional. But they are using the language of must, so it is a bit deceptive. People need to be warned, I think, to distinguish between the word must when it's written in a document like this and the word must when it's in the agreed syllabus.
So this statement of national statement of entitlement is a shared vision, if you like, for the subject between religion and worldviews. And then over the page, it talks about thinking it through and what to think about and how teachers might explore these. And you can see there's a picture of a backpack. And when we talk about cultural capital with children, we talk about the backpack of life they bring with them at the age of 5 or 13 or 15 to school, and how it is the responsibility of schools to fill that backpack with experiences so that they can make informed choices and decisions. So this is where teachers have to be very careful when teaching, that they don't imprint their own personal views and values on the children, and that they give a more generalized views. Some people believe this, others believe that. And not say, and I believe this, and you must do exactly as I say. So there are some definitely CPD implications there. Then it talks about pupils' personal worldviews, and then, you know, the connection within current practice and how big questions in the classrooms and big ideas. Lots of schools are used to working in that way. Then it explores how things are different in Wales, because in Wales they've actually changed the word religious education to, and the statutory requirement is that they teach religious education and worldviews. That is actually used now alongside the word RE. You can't just say, I teach RE. You say, I teach RE and worldviews. Yeah. They've changed it completely, and that's in their legislation.
Is it?
Yes.
In statements from the DFE.
In Wales, the government guidance for religion, values and ethics divides it into several interconnected sub-lenses. So the government guidance in Wales has changed. They no longer call it religion. It's religion, values and ethics, RVE, and within that they have worldviews. It's become legal.
What I'm saying is that the actual law as it applies to schools, will continue to talk about religious education.
No, it's now RVE. It's the government.
That's Wales.
Yeah, in Wales. Yeah, I'm talking about Wales.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. They put it into this paper because they're saying, look, don't worry about it, but there is one country very close by that is actually changing things quite radically.
I was just going to recommend a video that was recommended to me when I went on the last Nature webinar, and it was really good. So it's called Nobody Stands Nowhere. You can get it on YouTube for free. It's on the Theos Think Tank channel, and it's like 2 or 3 minutes long. I've actually used it with students, and it introduces the idea of, well, what is a worldview? How does it affect you? It's really quite nice. So if you want a real quick snapshot of what on earth we mean and how you could use it in a classroom, highly recommend it. Nobody Stands Nowhere on the YouTube channel called Theos Think Tank.
And then just as our syllabus shows you what good progress would look like within your agreed syllabus, well, they've taken a similar way of writing it, actually. On page 44, they talk about what does making good progress model look like. and they do 5 to 7-year-olds, 7 to 9-year-olds, and so on, whereas our agreed syllabus actually indicates in which year group a good model of progress would look like, and we divide it up into reception, year 1, year 2, because teachers need that, we feel, and they're quite happy with that. So this is quite an interesting document, and as one Michael says, that we may revisit time and time again, because this is the draft version, and I'm sure there will be updated versions, then there will be conferences on the draft, conferences on the second draft, and so on. So if you have any questions, or if you have any comments you wish to make, please do so.
This is a very substantial curriculum document, and I think teachers will be looking at this and academics will be looking at this over the next few years. I think, although it's a draft, I think we can take it that the bulk of the content will be carried through.
This document only came out perhaps 2 or 3 weeks ago, after we'd actually written the draft of our agreed syllabus. But when you read it alongside ours, there are some similarities, but there are some differences.
I was struck, just looking through again, how often the words explore and engage come through. I'd have liked to have seen a little bit more of reflect. But perhaps I haven't looked at that document closely enough. But we do seem to be, to some extent, in harmony with what is being done there.
Might schools decide eventually then, once this is finalised, they want to use this as their syllabus rather than Staffordshire's agreed syllabus? Would that be feasible, or would this be an umbrella document that they could refer to, or what would be the legal standing of this document?
Remind me again the status of your school.
I'm not in a school, but I'm a governor of 3 church schools that sort of use understanding Christianity as opposed to the agreed syllabus.
If the school is a controlled school, is it an academy?
No.
Then it is required to follow the agreed syllabus, which is what we've been looking at earlier today, either the current one or the one that's revised that will be launched probably in January next year. It does not have an option to do anything else. What is presented here from the REC, this draft document, is a propaganda document. They're wanting to have this adopted across the country. It is not statutory. It does not meet the requirements of the law as being an agreed syllabus of some local authority or other. It is, if you like, almost a manifesto, which many professionals are trying to promote and to, if I can put it like this, to bounce the whole of the RE world into following.
And if you're in a Church of England aided school, I think Zoe, that's you, isn't it? So you have to as well follow the diocesan guidance and the diocesan agreed syllabus, because they've got their own. If you're in a maintained school, you have to follow this. If you're in an academy, you choose which syllabus you follow from any of the syllabus available in the country. We have one school in Staffordshire who used different resources other than the agreed syllabus to deliver religious education, and the leadership and management section went to RI because they thought understanding Christianity, the resource, was actually the agreed syllabus. So all maintained schools need to know that they have to follow the agreed syllabus. It has to be written in their policy that that's what they do, but that they follow and enhance the syllabus using the following resources. And this then could be referenced, but they cannot say, we will follow the draft REC guidance on religious education, and this will be our syllabus. That you can't do that by law if you're in a maintained school.
Yeah, well, it's an aided, that's why.
Well, aided, you have to
understanding
follow the
Christianity.
diocesan.
And one of the schools I'm a governor of got outstanding in their SIAM, so I think what they're doing is
Brilliant.
meets.
Brilliant.
Oh yes, yeah. If it's an
Meets with
aided school,
approval.
it's like Zoe's school. You
Yeah.
follow what the diocesan people explain to you. But if it's a maintained control school, it's different, like
And
community schools.
All three of them are academies anyway. So.
Oh,
right.
well.
Yeah.
The academies themselves, particularly those that have a majority Church of England presence within them, are able to choose or are usually based on a foundation whose articles do say something a little bit about what should be taught within the RE area. So there is a bit of guidance there on that one.
Yes, they have a trust funding agreement, and that will state how religious education must be taught within that school. So it'll be in your articles of association.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep forgetting that. I think that's been a very useful look at this document, but I think we may want to look at sections of it as a bit of SACRE development in the future, because I think although it has got a bit of a propaganda element to it, it actually is a very thorough professional document which does deal with some of the fundamental issues that there are in religious education, or religious education and worldviews. Yes. May we move on then? Item 9 is the budget, and according to the budget, we have something like £6,300 unspent at the moment. Now, how much has that got to cover, Mary? Does that have to take us through to next April?
Yes, this is a budget from the 1st of April to the 31st of March of next year. And because this is our first meeting since the budget has been set, we haven't been unable to spend any of the money until you decide it's okay for us to spend. We do need to commit funds for the Engage project and for the Christianity project. So we need an okay, if you like, from yourselves today to say that's what we'll do. And then there will be needed time for planning and assessment for the agreed syllabus to enhance that aspect as well. And then we have been approached since we wrote this. Michael and I have been approached by some academies, Special School Academy, Whittick,
right,
to give support for special schools on delivering the agreed syllabus, but not through the main CPD that is run for all schools. So we might need to commit some funds for that. We need to spend as much as possible. Last year, we tried our best. And even though I've seen last year's budget, they won't let us carry forward any money, but I know we spent all of it, even though when I looked at the previous budget, it didn't look like we did, but I know we did, because we did the Engage projects, we did the Christianity projects. It's up to them if they didn't take the funds out. But I know that we've got this money here available to spend.
Okay, so if we look at the details of the budget here, Mary is saying that her work needs £1,500 set aside for the 3 days that she will need notionally. In fact, I'm sure she'll put in more than 3 days, but 3 days to add to the agreed syllabus as appendices. The £4,000 that's suggested there is to support the extension of the project across the county to schools that haven't been able to tap into it yet. And we know there is a demand for this, but it cannot be put on for free. We need to pay for the people of the minority ethnic support team, and we also need to pay a fee, which is a lesser fee, I have to say, to YouthNet for their part in the project. I don't know how much £4,000 would stretch to, Mary. How much would that cover?
Well, in Trust take, they charge about approximately £500 a day, but that does not cover, that covers all admin, etc. The MIAS team don't actually have £500 a day given to them, and neither does YouthNet. But because they are the people who actually facilitate and allow their team to go out to schools, they take £500 for the day. YouthNet, what happens there is we've got an agreement and it's easier for actually payments to be made in a different way to YouthNet. That's correct, isn't it? We just pay for your time, yeah. So we do that through various invoices. So it would be, well, yes, you do, yeah. So you charge 120 a day, then MIAS would perhaps be 300 a day, so it'd be 420, so £80 would go to Entrust, if that makes sense, to cover admin costs. Yeah. So it is about... It is frustrating, yes, but I'm supporting YouthNet through my company. It's much easier than trying to go through any other way. So anything that YouthNet has got an invoice, then I just pay that out. It's easier.
And then you can claim yourself.
Well, I will try my best.
Yeah, yeah. So...
The organisation that Stafford County Council uses, and it's much harder to pay for the Christianity stuff, which is significantly cheaper and has to go through a more convoluted route. It does seem a shame that.
Yeah,
but as long as you get paid, I'm happy.
Yes, I'm very happy that we get paid, because that means that we can keep going. But it does seem a bit of a shame that it's not more straightforward and more realistically priced.
To go back to my original question, how many children, pupils, could be given this experience for £4,000?
You're looking at about £500 a day, aren't you, for both? So that gives you 8 days' worth, doesn't it? 8 days.
So that would be 800 pupils or so?
Yeah.
Yeah, and your big, because your big picture one is just us, then again that's a different, you'll get more for your money in those ones, aren't you? Won't you? So I think probably we split it. And try
I mean, we would reach over 1,000 pupils, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Easily. Which for £4,000, which I suppose is quite good value for money.
Yeah.
I was just trying to get us a feel of the extension, the kind of impact this would have. That would leave us notionally about £800 left. Would we need that for anything, or would we need to look for ways of deploying it?
Well, we'll have a better idea in November of how many workshops we can facilitate. And then if we've got 800 left, then we could do another one, another full day with just 300 left. Yeah. So we could buy, as we did for the high schools before, we bought them a textbook to help us support them at Key Stage 3 and things like that, which I've still got a few copies which I'm posting out to schools when they ask for support. Yeah. So as £800 is a good idea to have left just in case as a slush contingency fund. I think that comes from the days of being a head teacher and thinking, I better have a little bit left.
That's right. Thank you, Sam. Thanks very much. I think we ought to note also that Sacre benefits from being able to meet here and to have the support of Mandy and then Simon, which we do not pay for. And we do appreciate that. That's hidden benefits, if you like, which add to the support that the local authority gives to us. Okay, are we happy with the budget?
And we will have some subscriptions to pay as well from the 800.
Yes.
So it might be £200 or £300 in subscriptions,
yes,
or conference fee if we're going to.
Well, that's right.
So we need to keep a little bit back.
Yes. And it shouldn't just be Mary and I who go as delegates of this Sacre. So if you want a jolly down to London or something, and the opportunity presents, do say.
I might just be overexcited about the idea that there's budget and we're being asked, to suggest how we might spend it, because it doesn't happen in school. But if the ultimate goal is to make Staffordshire this hive of excellent RE practice, what about having some sort of award that could be won by Staffordshire Sacre following schools, or any Staffordshire schools, that was for commendable work within RE, or you could set sort of questions that were very open-ended and exploratory, or it could be, I don't know if people have come across when Natre run the Spirited Arts competition. So they set this, if you don't know it, it's brilliant. They set 5 themes. So it might be a theme like, where is God now? And then children produce poetic or artistic responses to the question with little write-ups, and they're phenomenal. Something like that run locally that we could judge, I'd be all up for, and I think it'd really benefit schools and children too. Could have a nice cup.
Thank you for that, Lauren. In fact, those of us who've got long memories know that this actually was done in a very active way 2 advisors ago. And it petered out, I think, because there was possibly less money available, or schools weren't taking part in such an active way.
Heather Farr was a full-time member of interest, paid as a full-time advisor, and we had something called the Prezzies, which were the Sacre Award. I have one, and it's on my piano still. And we would have an award evening. Schools would be asked to nominate somebody in their schools who had done something towards the RE world, or a child that had shown the values of excellence in RE, and they would come to the award evening and they would receive refreshments and so on, and an award. That cost £1,500 for one evening. So, and then Heather was paid full time. Now, we don't have a full-time RE advisor. We only have me, and a lot of the work that I do is actually voluntary as well. But in principle, it's marvellous to reinstate those types of things. I'm with you 100%.
Not only was Heather full-time, Sacre had a budget of £12,000 as well. But those were the old days.
And we had a youth Sacre as well. We had a youth section, and they would join us here in the Sacre meetings, and we would run the youth Sacre for all the high schools and secondary pupils, and we would run workshop days for them and all sorts. But these were the days when money was just growing on trees.
Figuratively speaking. I think we should take Lauren's idea away and think about it and see whether something feasible can be developed. Thank you.
Chairman, I think it's a good idea. There's new world, innovation, digital. You don't have to write pieces of paper and send them out. You've all got the skills. If the skills are interested, they'll reply. Cost, sponsorship. Surely must be somebody who would like to have their name associated with this. There's plenty of other... We've been saying there's people relying on voluntary contributions to fund things. Something like this, one of those organisations would be willing to put the money towards it. Stop thinking about the old days. It ain't going to happen. With the cost of living crisis, you aren't going to get any more money. Just forget that. Be innovative and try and think outside the box and get those. I'm a vice president of the CPRE. We've got the same problem.
No, well, sound words, Councillor Atkins. Thank you very much. Yes. If we may move on then, and we'll return to that in due course another time. We have the development plan and plan for 22-23. I think this is something new, isn't it, Mary? Have you developed this?
This is the third time we've actually presented this to SACRE, and if you notice, on the right-hand side, we RAG-rated areas in February 2022, and things were red, things were amber, so now we're amber ++, green. It's RAG-rated, red, amber, green, and most of it is to do with the agreed syllabus, because this has been the most of our work that we've done to date. And I think after all that work has been completed, then we can develop another SACRE development plan which has in it reflection on awards for local schools, and then that would be our focus, if you like, to build that in to our work. Perhaps after the agreed syllabus is practically at its end, then we start on a new focus, just as you've indicated.
That's great. Yes, you're right. It is mostly agreed syllabus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Any comments?
Could do with a list of the organisations that are sponsoring and giving money at the moment, because that would be useful. But you know, I'm not against having a begging bowl.
The next item is the routine item, item 11, where we take notice of any requests that we have received for what's called variation of practice. In other words, variation in the requirements to provide collective worship in schools, which, according to the guidance, must be broadly or mainly of a Christian character, which could mean perhaps 2 or so items a week out of 5 or something like that, which might be related to Christian tradition. It's a fairly kind of limited requirement, but schools which have, say, a largely Muslim population could apply to be granted the opportunity to provide collective worship which was less Christian-oriented and which might perhaps have much more of an Islamic flavour. And we would have the power to say yes or no, but this has to come through official channels, and we would have to monitor this and make sure that if schools did apply, they had made adequate provision to ensure quality and consistency for their own pupils. I have to say that we have not received any request. I'm going through this spiel, partly for Amy's benefit and Zoe's benefit, if you haven't heard it before. But we have to include this as an item, just to take note that we have not received any applications for variation of practice. So just to record that. And that more or less concludes our agenda. We do not allow for matters of any other business, because none has been declared and none was included in the pack. No provision for this is the Mandy. I've been given guidance from Mandy on the past about this. No AOB. The dates of next meetings have been put in there. It is to be assumed that the meetings will be in county buildings unless other provision can be arranged. As I say, this is not the most ideal place for interaction and for the work of the SACRE, but I think people have coped very well this afternoon, so give yourselves a pat on the back. We have interacted as best we can, and we have got through our business, and hopefully people feel they've been able to contribute fully. Simon's had a bit of an introduction as to what goes on in a SACRE, at least this SACRE. I think they, like religious traditions, I think SACREs vary up and down the country.
Chairman, you can't,
no
when you book this room, you can ask for various formats. You could ask for workshop or conference, and we all sit facing the front. This is just a, this is a committee set up. You can have the cabinet. There's about 5 or 6. I bet Simon doesn't know all of them, but somebody will. If you wanted workshop, you can be sitting up there and we all have 4 or 5 tables.
I think that's a very helpful comment, actually, because there are people behind the scenes who will move the furniture around and set it up for us. And we need to know how we want it set up. This is how I'm familiar with this room. And I think Councillor Atkins too, from committee meetings and so on. Any other comments before we close the meeting? Can I just thank...
I was just going to say thank you for allowing me to join. It's been great to sit in and hear what's going on, because this is the sort of thing you wouldn't know was going on unless you were privy to it. So it's really great to be a part of, so thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Where are you based, by the way?
A bit here, there and everywhere, to be honest. I worship at Cannock Salvation Army, so Lydia was my minister. But I work at Stafford Salvation Army, so a bit here, there and everywhere.
Well, it's good that we should not all come from Stafford. We are a county sacre, not just a Stafford one. So very good, that's super. Well, thank you all very much. We declare the meeting closed at slightly above the 2-hour time, so less than that. So thank you very much.
Well done.